Hello, everyone. I'm going to talk about in-silico behavior discovery, a system we built to help ethologists to reduce the number of animal experiments. Ethology is a branch of biology which focuses on understanding animal behaviors. They are trying to answer questions like how do bees navigate, how do birds avoid mid-air collisions. Now, interestingly, current view in ethology suggests that animal behavior actually optimizes certain criteria, but the question is, what criteria is being optimized? To answer this question today, ethologists carry out some preliminary experiments. Then they collect the initial data. After that, they infer a set of potential hypotheses. If they want to find out which hypothesis is more promising, they will carry out animal experiments on each one and every one of these hypotheses. Well, this process could be repetitive, tedious, and time-consuming and cost. So can we do anything about this to reduce all the difficulties? Well, since animal behavior optimizes certain criteria, why don't we use some optimization methods to generate optimal strategies for each hypothesis? We then can rank the hypotheses and recommend the most promising ones. This is exactly how we propose in this in-silico behavior system, which accepts the initial data and the set of potential hypotheses as the input of our system. And the system outputs a subset of the hypotheses, which are more likely to explain the initial data. Using this system, ethologists then can focus on the promising hypotheses, thus save time and cost. So to build such an in-silico system, one of the challenges is that this system needs to take all sources of uncertainties into consideration. For example, different animals may have different body size, they may have different maneuvering capabilities, and the perceptional capabilities may be also different. So the in-silico system should be able to do optimal decision-making under uncertainty. Well, since partially observable Markov decision process is the standard framework for decision-making under uncertainty, the in-silico system used the PumpDP to build the animal behavior model and use a ranking mechanism to rank which hypotheses are more likely to explain the initial data. This is the architecture of the in-silico behavior discovery system. And these components on the left of this box are provided by ethologists. As a preliminary study, I will focus on pairwise head-on collision avoidance encounter scenarios of honeybees. We label the two encountering honeybees as outgoing honeybee and incoming honeybee. In our work, we only control the action of the outgoing honeybee. We model the outgoing honeybee as a rational agent, which try to maximize certain objective functions, such as avoid collisions with least effort. Now, let's see how we can build the in-silico system for this scenario. First, let's see the dynamic and perception models, which is essentially a PumpDP model. A PumpDP model is a 6-element tuple. The state space here is a continuous state space, which is the joint state of both animals, including the joint positions, headings, and velocities. The action space is the set of actions our agent can perform, which in this case is the cross product of the vertical acceleration and the turn rates. The transition function encodes the kinematic of both animals. In this case, it captures the models the state transition uncertainties, which comes from the uncertain behavior of the incoming bee. The observation space is the local area where our agent can see, and the observation function models the perception noise. The reward function here represents the optimization criteria, which in this case corresponds to the exact hypothesis we are going to be tested. Now, the main point with a PUMDP agent is that due to the uncertainties, it may never know the exact state it is currently in. Therefore, it cannot decide the best action to perform based on a single state. So instead, it needs to plan based on the set of states that are consistent with the information available so far. PUMDP then represents such a set of states as a probability distribution over the state space called a belief. A PUMDP planner is then try to find the optimal policy that maps from beliefs to actions. Once we got the PUMDP model, we need a PUMDP solver to generate the near optimal policy. In here, any state-of-the-art PUMDP solvers can be used, as long as they can handle the continuous state space. In our study, we use PUMCP due to its online property, which helps to alleviate the problem caused by non-planning horizons. Once we got the solver, we generate the near optimal policy. We feed the policy into the simulator to do the simulation. The simulator is essentially a PUMDP controller, which simulates a PUMDP agent. In the simulation, the agent maintains an estimation about the current belief. Then, based on the current belief and the input policy, it decides which action to take. After the action is performed, then it may receive an observation. Then, based on this new information, the agent updates its new estimation on which state it is currently in. So in this case, the simulation result is the outgoing trajectories of our agent. Now, for each hypothesis, the PUMDP solver and the simulator generates a set of simulated trajectories. If we want to know which hypothesis is more likely to generate the initial data, we need a way to measure the similarities between these simulated trajectories and the initial data. That's exactly how the hypothesis ranking module does. The ranking module decides which hypothesis is more promising based on the similarities between the sets of similarity trajectories and the initial data. So the similarity measure is based on these three components: minimum, the threshold distance, minimum encounter distance, and the collision rate. The threshold distance takes two whole trajectories into consideration. Here, you can see alpha t and beta t are the parameterization over the whole trajectory, where alpha 0 and beta 0 are the beginnings of the trajectory, alpha 1 and beta 1 are the endings of the trajectory. An intuitive explanation of the threshold distance is a man walking his dog scenario. Assume the man walks on one trajectory, the dog walks on the other. The threshold distance is the minimum distance that allows the man and the dog to walk along the respective trajectories from one end to the other without backtracking. Here are the rest of the two components: minimum encounter distance and collision rate. Note that these three components are necessary conditions in the sense that if two sets of trajectories are similar, they should have similar measure in terms of threshold distance, minimum encounter distance, and the collision rate. These three components complement each other. Now, how do we rank a hypothesis? Well, let's first see how do we compare two hypotheses. Comparing two hypotheses means we need to compare two different sets of trajectories. So here we use the expected value of the previous three components, which forms as the tuple, which serves as a similarity measure here. This tuple acts as a prioritization in the sense that when comparing two hypotheses, we first look at the first element, whether there is any significant difference in the first element. If there is, then we know the hypothesis with a smaller Freshy distance will be a more promising hypothesis. Then if not, we look at the second element, and the second element becomes the determining factor, and so on. But the problem with this tuple-based similarity measure is that it alone is not enough to make the ranking totally ordering. So we use voting methods, for example, majority voting or community voting to enforce total ordering. At this end, I've talked about all the components of the Insilico system. Now let's see how do we verify the system. First, we need to generate the initial data. For this, we built a random tunnel for bees flight, which encourages close encounters here. At one end of the tunnel, we attached the hive. At the other end, we put the food there. So the idea is that we release a bee from the hive into the tunnel. Once the bee reaches the food, it will return back. At this moment, we release another bee from the hive into the tunnel. So in this case, we create close encounter scenarios. In this way, we have gathered 100 pairs of encounter trajectories as initial data. Here is one such encounter scenario in which the red path is the flying behavior of the incoming honeybee, while the blue path is the flying behavior of the outgoing honeybee. Now, since we have the initial data, how do we construct a set of hypotheses and to verify the system? Well, to verify, we use optimization criteria that biologists believe to be true, which in this case is the three characteristics. Namely, bee usually fly toward a certain goal instead of randomly wandering in the tunnel. They also prefer to fly at the center of the tunnel because they use optical flow to navigate. They need to balance the optical flow in the left eyes and the right eyes. They also are attracted to light, which means they prefer to fly near the transparent roof. We got this optimization criteria. How do we encode this criteria into the reward functions to construct a set of hypotheses? Well, we use this criteria to construct the reward function, and we set the reward function as a weighted sum of these four components. The first component is quite the basic, except that the rest of the components are corresponds to the previous three criteria, in the sense that the second and the third, the destination reward and horizontal centering are quite conform to the criteria, while the vertical centering are not that true because bees have a tendency to fly towards the roof, the transparent roof. So we can construct a set of hypotheses based on different combinations of these components. Here is the set of hypotheses we constructed on the left of this column, from simple to complex in terms of consisting components. While on the right column is the ranking results of our system for all these constructed hypotheses. A smaller value means a better hypothesis. So in this case, we can see the system can actually identify the most promising combinations of these components, which is the bee trying to fly towards certain goal plus horizontal sintering. We can also see that this system actually makes those hypotheses contain not so correct vertical sintering components actually ranked very low here. In our case, is ranked at the 4th and 5th place, which in other way to verify that our system to make those not that promising hypotheses at the bottom of the ranking. Since this paper, we also have conducted extensive animal experiments up to 90 hypotheses. And even in this case, our system can still identify the most promising hypotheses. Having said that, this is still a preliminary work, and there are lots of for improvements. Well, to summarize, our In-silico system can help ethologists focus on the most promising hypotheses to thus enable them to focus on the subsequent experiments with less animal trials. Thanks.